Welcome back to another new podcast from Coatings Pro Magazine. I'm your host, Vin Dubose, and I'm the news editor with the AMP publications team. AMP is the shorthand acronym for the Association for Materials Protection and Performance, of which Coatings Pro is a member magazine. Today, in this December 2025 podcast, we're speaking with Don McLean, Andrew Kroll, and Ken Seal from the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, known as the IUPAT. The union has so many great initiatives and resources that can help our coatings audience, and so we're going to be highlighting a few of those on this sponsored episode. As you may recall, we've had a few IUPAT episodes this year pertaining to different hot-button topics in the industry, and today we're going to be looking at the important role of certifications in industrial painting and why it's so important to be accredited. As always, for this panel discussion, we want it to be a quick-hitting roundtable format. So if each of you want to share your perspectives on a given question or topic, of course, you're welcome to. But if you all just want to have one person speak, that also works, whatever you guys are most comfortable with. So let's start with introductions. First off, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, all that good stuff. For anyone who hasn't caught the earlier IUPAT episodes, can each of you tell our audience a bit about yourself and your career in coatings, as well as what it is that you're doing today with the IUPAT? Ken, we can start with you.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate that. I'm Ken Seal, Deputy Director with the IUPAT. I've been in the trade now for approximately 39 years. Was in the field for one company for 25. Started out at the Nuke Subs at Bangor Shipyard. And I also hold a occupational safety and health degree and sit on multiple standard boards within the DC area.
And Andrew, we can move on to you.
Hi, I'm Andrew Kroll. I'm the Industrial Liaison with IUPAT. I'm a 20-year member, bridge painter and industrial painter by trade. Came up through the ranks and became an industrial coordinator where I taught apprentices, organizer, business agent, director of organizing, and now I'm here at the IU representing our members on a national and an international level.
And finally, Don, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. Happy holidays. I'm a 25-year member, a 30-year painter, and started my apprenticeship in 1995. I'm a lead organizer, and I came up through the training programs and as an instructor.
All right, let's move on to the basics of certifications in industrial painting and why accreditation is so important. Let's start with project requirements. What types of projects typically require specific certifications, and why is it that these standards are so important?
That's a great question, Ben. And a lot of these projects that require certifications or accreditations, whether it's contractor or worker, a lot of them come from whether it's Department of Defense, it comes from the Department of Transportation, whether it's at a state or a local level. We see a lot of these certifications implemented through these various agencies.
It's a great answer, Andrew. If you look at the Navy requires the C7 certification for the worker, which is the blasting certification, which is surface prep. And then they also require the C12, and that's the coating certification that is through AMP, which is a third-party certification that's recognized worldwide. And then if we look at the, why standards? Well, standards developed on anything that we do, no matter if it's a safety-related issue, a work-related issue, or anything, a standard is built because of a reason. So there's something that was put out there that dictates if a standard's needed or not. The standard is drafted up by a body of subject matter experts. It's voted on, especially an ANSI standard. It's voted on to make sure that equal parties are voting on this particular standard. But in the coating industry, they found out that standards were needed because of the failures that they were having on these industrial projects.
Can any of you provide an example of a project where certifications played a key role to ensure safety and long-term performance?
We don't want to really mention company names because it's not about a company. It's about the industry itself and really raising that bar to where it should be. I said on a couple of podcasts that we've done that, our families and friends drive over these bridges and next to tanks and over pipes and doing all that stuff. And it's so critical that the job is done correctly. So the life expectancy of that project is done, to where it withstands that. So if a project's, life expectancy is 15 years, you want it to last longer than that. And when you, apply people that have the certifications that do the work right, then you're almost guaranteed. There's kind of a warranty there for that the project is being done to the way the standard is being set. And then I look at the safety part of this question, and you know, it is a worker's job to go out there, and make a profit for our contractors. I mean, that's why a contractor hires us on for, but a contractor doesn't have a right to make a profit off our life. And I look at these certifications, and when you go through the training to get these certifications, and you can understand the safety aspect of these certifications, it just makes sure that the workforce is safe that's out there, and they can continue to go to work and really benefit this industry. So I'm going to look at it that way. But there's multiple projects out there. I would just hate to call out one, but if you look at Navy ships that, that go out there and protect this great country that we're in, the Navy ships require certifications out there. And one reason they do that is because they know that they can count on the work that's being done.
Ken, so yeah, great points. I'd like to point out, these projects are our treatment plants, refineries, water storage tanks, and maintenance programs. Like Ken said, shipyards, bridges, windmills, offshore rigs, pipelines. This is critical infrastructure. So having qualified contractors performing this work with teams of painters that are all certified and have safety certifications and state-of-the-art training is vital. So that's where I see the certifications coming in.
And then from the contractor perspective, how do these certifications make them more confident that their investments are protected?
Ben, that's a great question. When you would look at the cost of equipment that these contractors have on their job sites, we're not talking thousands of dollars. We're talking sometimes millions of dollars of equipment. And in order to gain, and I'm just going to use CAS level full status, for example, you have to have so many years and hours of prerequisites in order to have that certification. Well, if you look at how many hours it takes somebody to have that to acquire that certification. They've been around that equipment for a long time. They know what they're doing. They've been around it. They've used it, and that kind of provides a contractor ease of mind, knowing that they have been around. They know what they're doing. They know how to not only blast and paint, but they know a little bit about the equipment, because it's a huge investment for these contractors as well. So it does provide a little bit of peace of mind, I guess you could say, for these contractors, knowing that they have a qualified and certified workforce.
Yeah, I like that answer there, Andrew. Confident is a big thing. And, a contractor could either make a choice here. They could either get somebody that they hope knows what they're doing. There's no guarantee there. There's no backing or standard that this particular person was hired on for. There was nothing that, he went up against to show that he knew how to do his work. Now, the contractor can hire that person. I don't know what the confident level would be if he can do the work or not. Because if you look at a contractor, their whole livelihood is if this job makes it or breaks it. And if you hire somebody that has a certification, a contractor hires somebody that has a certification, there's kind of a confident level there, because this person's went through a rigorous testing, through a theory part of a testing and practical portions. So the contractor's getting somebody that a standard was set for by a third party that's recognized worldwide, AMP. These workers have gone through that testing and have proved themselves to know what they're doing. That if I was a contractor and I was hiring somebody on and I had to make a profit on this job, I had to also feed my family. And I also did not want no one to get hurt, because, nobody should get hurt on a job site. I'd rather have somebody that has a certification. I think that would raise my confidence level on the projects that I'm doing.
Let's talk about QP contractors specifically. For anyone unfamiliar, what does it mean to be a QP certified contractor, and why is that requirement becoming more common on major infrastructure projects?
Well, I look at a QP contractor and what it means to be a QP contractor. AMP is where that particular accreditation goes through. And there's a set of standards that is done by a development group. And the development group comes out with these criterias of what a contractor in good faith should look like. If we look at QP1 contractors, that contractor has the third party AMP going into their offices and making sure that they run their company like a company. They have safety programs, they have payroll records, they have contracts, they have proper bid documents. They have all the things in place that an office should have in place, which kind of gives an asset owner a little bit of guarantee that he's not hiring somebody that's working on the back of his truck, that he's really hiring a contractor that's meeting a standard that's recognized worldwide. So I think that's really important to understand that these contractors are actually looked at, and then they get re-audited to make sure that they just didn't go through this process to become a QP contractor to get a job, and they fake the whole thing. They get re-audited to make sure that they're living up to their standards. So I think it's really important to understand the fact that when you're an asset owner and you hire a contractor as a QP or accreditation, that they're looked at and they're scrutinized to make sure that the company is running the way it's supposed to.
That's a great answer, Ken. And, to add to that, another reason why I think they're becoming more common on especially major infrastructure projects is because it's a protection for the taxpayer. They write whether it's QP1, QP2 into legislation that if it's a Department of Transportation job funded by either state, local, or federal government, these projects are going to an accredited contractor because at the end of the day, it's an insurance policy for the taxpayer. And I think a lot of legislation is being pushed for these accreditations to happen.
You all touched on how being a QP contractor can set a company apart when it comes to quality, safety, and reliability. You can elaborate on that more if you want, but I also want to address the other side of the spectrum, which is non-QP contractors and some of the risk that clients take on, both from a financial standpoint and a safety standpoint, when a non-QP contractor gets awarded a key industrial painting project. So can you sort of compare and contrast the QP contractors, the non-QP contractors, and what the risks are if a client or an asset owner goes with a non-QP contractor?
That's an interesting question, Ben, and I'll try to answer it the best I can here. But I want to start out that if you have a kid that just learned to drive and they needed to get new tires put on the car, brakes put on their car, something within their car that could fail and that could cause a catastrophic accident out there, you would rather have a certified mechanic working on their car rather than a non-certified mechanic working on the car. That's how important a QP contractor is. QP contractors been proven, they've been vetted, they've been audited to make sure that their company is running to standards, that they are the expert within what they're doing. A non-QP contractor is somebody that's never been looked at. I could do a great PowerPoint. I mean, a great website. I can use AI to do that for me. You might look at my website and think I'm a great company, not knowing that I just watched a YouTube video and got my truck and bought a $500 spray pump, and now I'm out there painting a bridge. That's a non-QP contractor. That's somebody that's not been looked at, that's not been gone through any standard process, nothing. So if it was me and it was my family, my kids going to the mechanic to get their car work done, and it could cost their life if it was done wrong, I would want a certified mechanic to do that. And the same on the projects. If I'm an asset owner or contractor, I would want accredited contractors and certified workforce to do the work for me.
Another thought is, with the potential risk of, the financial related risk, and using an example of a QP2 contractor. So the removal of lead and other hazardous materials from abrasive blasting on jobs. The steps that they need to take to ensure that not only the environment's protected, the public's protected, but it's the added security to know the workers are protected. There's step-by-step processes, and that includes an on-site worker that has a certification. The worker has a C3 or a C5. They're deemed a competent person on that job. So if there is an issue, they're able to take care of it immediately, because at the end of the day, an environmental cleanup, or if someone were to get sick from lead poisoning, somebody in the public, especially around a school or in another sensitive receptor, it could literally put a company out of business. So having that QP2 contractor doing the work makes it just provides having a QP2 contractor do the work provides an ease of mind.
That's great, Andrew. Just a little bit of follow-up on that also is when you look at a QP contractor that's gone through all this painstaking, time-consuming process to become a QP contractor because they believe in this particular standard, they don't want to lose it. So when you look at safety, they really want to keep their crew safe. It's not just something on a piece of paper that I check a box. A non-QP contractor could easily do that. All they have to do is check a box and move on. And if you look at a QP contractor, AMP, the third-party association that looks at these jobs and audited these jobs, they're looking at the quality of work that's being done. Is that QP contractor following what they're supposed to do? And if you look at reliability, there's studies out there to show that, when a job's done correctly in the way it's supposed to be done, it lasts longer than a job that's not.
We talked earlier about major infrastructure projects. Many of these are publicly funded. There's also numerous other types of publicly funded projects. What are the ways that accreditation supports greater accountability and transparency? Just speak to, I guess, how accreditation has become such a vital part of modern industrial work within the coating space. And then specifically, when it comes to accountability, transparency, the things you need when you're talking about projects that involve public money, what's the role of accreditation there?
So when we're talking about accreditations, which is the QP stuff that we keep referring to, that's a contractor's really, where they get audited and they have to go through a process. That's an accreditation for a contractor. And then we look at the certifications. That's more for, the worker, the person that's actually doing the work. And I go back to the scenario I used at, the auto parts store, right? The mechanic shop where the car goes down there and you're getting a licensed mechanic to do the work. If I was an asset owner, somebody that's, in charge of making sure that the public and private money is being spent right, I would want some type of an insurance behind that, showing that I'm spending the money in the right way. One, it's going to keep my reputation up to where it needs to be. The other thing, there's an ethical thing there that I'm spending and I'm responsible for the public money and the private money, that I'm spending it the way it should be spent. I would rather have some type of a guarantee behind that, that I'm hiring the right people. And if I look at the QP contractors, they've gone through a process. I don't have to worry about this contractor because a third party's done that for me. And standards are set very high for these contractors. So if I'm an asset owner and I'm hiring a contractor that's got a QP accreditation, I know I'm getting a contractor that knows how to run his business. I also know when I hire a QP contractor that part of their accreditation requires them to hire a certified workforce. And if I'm an asset owner again and I'm spending, private and public money, I would want to know that the work itself is being done the way it's supposed to. I said on a couple of podcasts prior to this that we can have the great specifications, we can have great raw material, we can have great manufacturers that manufacture the paint for us, and we could have all this paperwork front-sided perfect. Great company, everything else is in line to have a perfect job, and then you hire somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. It doesn't make sense to me. The workers always put at the last, and I'm going, well, they're probably the most important thing here, because if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then, the public's going to lose their money because the job itself, the project itself will not last as long as the people that are in the public sector were told that the job is going to last. So they're just throwing their money out there, hopefully it lands in the right spot. But again, if they hire a QP contractor and certified workforce, they know where their money's going.
Just to add to that, Ken, with an accredited contractor, the steps that they need to take, there's 3 words that really hone in on what they need to do, and that's documentation, documentation, and documentation. It's everything from the reports on that job to what products they use, manufacturer's dates, ambient temperatures. So, and if you go even further than that, you go on to the inspection reports and the documentation that's required on that. So it's just never-ending documentation that really shows that the contractor knows what they're doing and protects the taxpayer at the end of the day.
Let's look at the IUPAT specifically. What are the ways that you all ensure that your members are trained, certified, and prepared for all the technical demands of modern industrial painting?
That's a great question, Ben. One, we have an apprenticeship program. A person, comes off the street not knowing anything. He goes into an apprenticeship program that we have Department of Labor registered programs that are out there. Our curriculum and everything are scrutinized to make sure that our curriculum meets the standard it's supposed to meet. Not only that, but Don, Andrew, myself set on multiple accreditation board and standard boards to make sure that we understand, how those standards are driven, how the certification works, how the accreditation works. And we're educating our members on a daily basis, not only how to, do surface prep or do coatings on a project. We're making sure that the workforce itself understands why they're doing what they're doing. It's one thing to be able to, grab a blast hose and blast, but why are you doing that? Our membership understands that. They go through a 3 to 4 year, program before they journey out of the program. But then again, with our contractors, we help our contractors to understand, the new standards that are coming out, the new products, the new equipment that's coming out, making sure that our companies themselves are also equipped to do the jobs that, the way they're supposed to do. But we take great pride. We treat them like family because they are, but we make sure that our members are ready to make sure that they can go out there and do the work that they're asked to do it in a level that it's supposed to be done. So not only is the public and private money being spent the way it's supposed to be spent, the job is being done right. But these members can earn a great income to raise a family, put their kids through college, and do all that stuff that we dream to do here when we have a career.
Well said, Ken. I'd like to add that in many of our markets across the country, we have state-of-the-art training centers. Our workforce is always paired up with other experts in the field. The amount of instructors that we have and proctors that Ken aligns in these schools and the amount of courses that we constantly have keeps our minimum standard up. And in an industry where you're constantly going to class with your peers and working in the same circles as a lot of these workers in these companies, it makes that minimum proficiency a high standard, actually. Yeah, so maybe you want to talk about some of our training centers, Andrew.
Good comment, Don. What Don was referring to is that we got 109 training centers, U.S. and Canada, and these training centers are equipped with the most up-to-date equipment that's out there. And we go through step by step by step how to do our jobs correctly. But with 109 training centers, U.S. and Canada, I think we're setting a good place right now.
And something else with our training centers, each one of them has real world technology at our training centers, real world industrial recyclers, air compressors. So our apprentice and journeymen get to learn how to work on this equipment, how to troubleshoot it. So when they go out into the field, once again, like we talked about a little bit ago, it just gives that contractor that reassurance that our members know what they're doing and protecting their assets as well.
So, why is it important for all workers, not just contractors, to have up to date training and certifications? Just want to speak to the entirety of the union workforce and not specifically the contractors.
You see union workforce, Ben, and, I've been union for, going on 39 years and truly believe in the family that I joined because, the union is a family. And I think that's the most important thing when you look at the union side of it. We're a family. We're going to make sure that you have the education and background to do what you're supposed to do. We're going to make sure that, you're getting enough income to raise a family and have dignity in life. That's the union side because we believe in the one family, one fight, one union. We believe in those terms, because we have a statement there, your values and missions, one union, one family, one fight. And we will fight for our membership to make sure that they got the qualifications. But with that said, I want to look at it an industry thing. Why should everybody have certifications on a worker level? And I kind of said it a little bit ago. I want to flip this completely around because, again, we can have everything perfect prior to the job commencing. We know what needs to be done on this particular job. But if you hire somebody that doesn't know what they're doing, doesn't have any background or anything to show that, then you're taking a chance. You're taking a chance that it's being done wrong. You hope it's being done right. You don't know how long the project's going to last. But if a worker has a certification, they've gone through the training to show them how a project is supposed to be surface prepped, what level it's supposed to be prepped to. They've gone through training to understand the equipment, how to put the coatings on there, why they're putting the coatings on there, why they're meeting the millage that it's supposed to go on at. So as an industry thing, it's just the right thing to do if we're going to protect private and public money, if we're going to protect the people that we love going across these bridges and, next to these tanks and, riding on the ships and boats that, the cruise ships and all. Knowing that somebody knows what they're doing has so much value to the industry itself.
Speaking from your expertise as a union, can you share a story or two of having a highly trained union workforce and how that's made a noticeable difference when it comes to the quality or safety of a project? Just from your perspective as union leaders, what are some examples of cases where having that highly trained workforce has really made a difference for the end project?
You know, I actually did a case study a couple years ago, and not going to mention contractors' names, but one was done union and one was done non-union. Sister bridges, and if you look at the quality of one to the other, it's night and day different. And to say, well, one might have been spec'd differently, it was the same coating system, zinc, macropoxy, and it was Acrylon 218 top coat. And if you look at them side by side, it speaks volume to the difference in quality.
That's a great answer, Andrew. And now I'm just going to bring the Navy up. Navy did a report. It's an older report. It was done like in the 90s. It's an older report, but I think it has a lot of value. Hence the reason that they require a QP contractor to do the work on the ships that, we count on to do what they're supposed to do when they're out there to protect us. Is they did a study between a QP contractor and a non-QP contractor. And the end of that report stated that having a QP contractor with, certified workforce that's out there, the end outcome was a lot better and the life expectancy was far beyond what they expected.
So one thing that's really cool about the IUPAT, you guys work with other entities to raise the bar for industry standards. You all have a good understanding that there's only so much you can do if you're operating in a silo. So you work in collaboration with other relevant entities. As one example, you're on an AMP podcast today. What are the ways that you all are raising the bar for these workforce standards across the industrial coatings industry? Just speak to the totality of your work and what you're doing with other people and other organizations to make sure that these workforce standards are where they need to be for the industry as a whole.
Just starting out and looking at that, we do. I sit on the education committee, with AMP. I sit on the QP accreditation board for it with AMP. I'm in contact with, AMP on a daily basis. But not only that, we're in the engineers' offices, we're in the architects' offices, we're in the end users and owners' offices, talking to them about the importance, of these accreditations and certifications, and let them know what they really are and what they really mean. And then on the safety side of it, I mentioned, when you ask us to tell a little bit about ourselves, I'm one of 75 voting members of the ANSI A10 Standards Committee there, and I sat on multiple health and safety boards throughout DC. I was appointed to sit on ACOSH, which was a advisor committee to OSHA. So I'm there. I'm in the game. I'm seeing what's out there. I'm listening to the injuries that are happening. And then I'm taking that information and not only bringing it back to our workforce, our contractors, but I'm also sharing that information with the end users and the asset owners of these projects.
Something else we do is, we work with AMP, as Ken mentioned. We also work with different vendors and engineers. We share best practices, but we also work with product developers to help develop a better product, better system, better coatings, and just keep raising that bar for this industry. So, it's exciting to see what we can do as the IUPAT working with other entities, and that bar just keeps getting raised higher and higher and higher.
What are some of the training programs or partnerships that you all offer that can help support contractors when they're trying to meet these QP standards and other accreditation standards that are from entities outside of the IUPAT, yet you all have your own training programs and partnerships to help them achieve those standards and to meet that bar? Just speak to what you all offer in-house, what some of those resources are.
Then we got a lot of resources that, that come to mind, and I'm probably going to miss a lot of them. But, building those relationships in business itself, relationships are so important. And that's just across the board. And, participating in AMP and being a member of AMP and going to, their standards committees and being an SME on some of their projects and going to the conferences that they have, you really meet people that are very, very familiar with the industry itself. There's some really smart people, some experts that's out there. And by building those relationships, we're able to leverage those, with our contractors. If there's a special project that come up, I'll use metallizing because it's coming up. It's being used in some areas now. I can leverage that because I have some relationships that are within the metallizing industry, and I can bring those experts to our contractors so our contractors can learn from them. If I look at the offshore wind, there's a lot of rope access that goes on that, and building those relationships within that community allows me to bring those experts into our training centers and educate our instructors and educate our members so we can build a training program around that. So I really think, the question is that we build so many relationships, and, these relationships are important. It's just not a relationship to get something. I truly believe that it's a partnership to make sure that our industry's bar is being raised to where it should be raised at. And, they're part of our family. And to be able to share that information with others just does us all good.
And then when you talk about those relationships, I think that focus can benefit not just contractors, but other stakeholders throughout the entire value chain. We can speak to vendors, we can speak to project owners, even the general public. But this relationship driven approach, as I see it, can really benefit the entirety of the value chain and not just the contractor. So, from your perspective at the IUPAT, what are the training benefits when you look at it from that perspective and how your approach tries to benefit, I guess, multiple entities throughout the chain?
This comes down to raising the bar, like we said before. When you put everything together and you add everything that you just talked about, it raises the industry standard, so that not just the union has a better workforce, but the non-union has to raise their bar as well. And at the end of the day, this industry just keeps evolving and keeps growing, and the sky's the limit with it. Then,
That's
all
a
right.
great answer, Andrew. And I think you're right. It's about raising that bar. And when the bar is raised to where it's supposed to be, and the public is seeing that, and the private entities are seeing that, the asset owners are seeing that, it just makes it where the industry in a whole, raises that bar to where it should be so we can count on the projects being done in the right way.
All right, let's look ahead to the impact that these programs can have, not just now, but into the future, and not just for contractors, but as you were just describing, for other entities and for the general public, really the world at large. We spoke a little earlier about how meeting these accreditations and having these qualifications can protect public funding in several areas. I think these can also, based on the superior quality of coding jobs that are done, this can reduce long-term maintenance costs. So can you speak to how these qualifications and accreditations not just protect funding in the short term, but in the long term as well? How does that all work?
But if you look at coatings that are specified, there is a life expectancy of these coatings based on certain surface preparation, putting on these coatings and applying them at certain millages, ambient conditions when they're applied. And when you mix a certified worker into the aspect that they know exactly how to read a product data sheet, whether or not it has the correct surface profile, it just adds to the level of bang for your buck that the end user is going to get. And it just ties it all together.
I like that, Andrew. And Ben, I would state that you ever buy something and you think it's going to last, and you've done your research and you think you got it right, and you buy something. It could be a new car, it could be a boat, it could be something, and you're so proud, and you get out there and it breaks down on you, and it's just like I shake my head going, what a waste of money that was. I probably should have done a little bit more research to make sure that the ones that I was buying that off of, the company or manufacturer or whatever, were doing what they were supposed to do. They did their due diligence to make sure that I was getting the quality that I was paying for.
You get the buyer's remorse, Ken.
Absolutely, Andrew. I look at that and I shake my head sometimes going, why would somebody want to go to with the lowest bidder? Okay, yeah, you might save money up front, but you're going to lose it when it doesn't last as long as it's supposed to. And then if you look at the maintenance stuff, it's so much easier to do maintenance on a coding project when the job was done right in the first place. If it's done incorrectly, you're going out there trying to fix stuff that's just a cancer. It's going to happen day after day after day, and it's just going to you're going to spend so much money out there fixing things on a daily basis. If the job is done correctly, it's going to last as long as it's supposed to. If you do proper maintenance on the project, it's going to last a lot longer it's supposed to. And, you're probably doubling your money in that case of the money that you're spent on this project. So again, I just go back. If I had the money to spend, if I was that one that's spending, the money to have a project done within my area here, I would want somebody doing that project that I knew I was spending my money the right way. Money's hard to get, and want to make sure that it lasts as long as it's supposed to.
Yeah, I'd like to add, Ken. Here in Southern California, we saw years back where the refineries all set minimum standards and passed Senate bills to use skilled and trained workers and raise that bar. And the life expectancy of coating, routine maintenance, and rework isn't happening as much. So we're seeing the products and the finished work actually lasting longer, costing the taxpayers less money. And it all comes back to the training and integrity of coatings and the applicators that are doing the work. If they're trained, it'll get done right.
And then as I see it, a big part of this is that it ensures projects are done in good faith. Because if you're trying to save money on the front end and that's the clear emphasis, then it sets a precedent, at least as I see it, that corners can be cut. Whereas if you're investing proactively for those long-term gains, it's much more likely that the project's going to be carried out in good faith, that the standards are going to be met. Just speak to, if you could, how that level of investment on the front end and having these accredited contractors and workers really ensures that projects get done in good faith.
Well, it's always easier and cheaper to do it right the first time. And having an accredited contractor who has to have a certified workforce just ensures that the project's going to get done exactly how it needs to be done within spec and hopefully on time and within budget.
That's a great answer, Andrew. And I look at companies that are bidding on work, and I look at accredited companies that are out there, and their bids are pretty well within line of each other, give or take a little bit, but they're pretty much in line. You look at a non-accredited contractor, and they're leaving so much on the table. And when I state so much on the table, the bid could be at a certain amount, or the projected bid could be at a certain amount. And, they're leaving hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table because what they expect is they expect to make up that money during the project. Extra work, all kinds of different failures. So that particular company is looking to make up that money during the project. And again, it's still not going to last as long because they're still cutting corners. I just would rather have a contractor that I knew that I was hiring on that's, going to do it right in the first place. And, I think having the accreditations and certifications really makes that playing field even also. So when we have contractors bidding on work and they have to meet these accreditations and certifications, that we're getting companies out there that are bidding on these projects to do it the right way.
And we can extol all the virtues of investing proactively on the front end and the long-term benefits of that. And we can talk all day about how that adds value to the contractor, to the asset owner, to the general public. And it's true. And yet there are still going to be cost pressures in the short term. And so because of that, there can be some misconceptions out there in the marketplace from people who are trying to benefit from those corners being cut, as we were just describing. So from your perspectives at the IUPAT, what are some of the misconceptions that you've come across regarding union labor or contractor accreditation? What are some of the primary misconceptions and how would you clear those up?
That's a great question, Ben. I like to start out here because, the union a lot of times get a bad rap. And if you look at our union, I said it earlier, we're really about being one union, one family, one fight. We fight for our members. We make sure that our members are trained the way they're supposed to be trained, and we make sure that they're getting the income that they should be getting so they can lead a decent, respectable life and raise a family. Because when people go through life, that's what it's all about, being able to raise a family and enjoy life. And that's what the union is about. That's that family part of the union. But we get away from that part of it. And, we're just like everybody else. We want the bar to be set where it's supposed to be. We want the projects to be done the way that they're supposed to be done. We want the projects to be bid the way that it's supposed to be bid. And we want to make sure that the private and public and all that money that's going into these projects are being spent the right way. We're no different than anybody else that's out there, other than the ones that are wanting to do it wrong. And all they're thinking about is, just the profit itself, not about the project, just, solely on the profit, not about keeping somebody safe, not about, doing the project the way it's supposed to be doing. All they care about is that money, and they don't care if they get anybody hurt doing that. So as a union, if a company's out there trying to do it the right way, union or non-union, we just want that bar to be set where it's supposed to be set. As a union, we're going to worry about our workforce out there, our membership, and make sure that our membership is supported the way they should be supported.
Let's wind down by looking to the future. The things we've been discussing today with regards to the training options, certifications, accreditation, what is the future going to look like there? How are those things going to shape the future of infrastructure maintenance and really the entire industrial painting industry? What are you expecting to see in the years ahead?
With the rising cost of labor, healthcare, retirement, and we add all of this into what a worker should be paid and needs to be paid. Obviously, it raises the cost of what a overall project will cost. One way that these certifications and accreditations will help shape the future is that it will actually help lower these costs because the work's going to get done in a timely manner and done right the first time.
I like that, Andrew. And Ben, we're on a podcast right now, and we're talking to the public that's out there, and we're talking to asset owners, and we're talking to contractors that are listening to this podcast, and you know it's all about educating the asset owners out there how important a QP accredited contractor is and why and what they go through to be QP accredited. We're educating, the public of why a worker should have a certification and important behind them having a certification so their money's being spent the right way. So I would hope that the ones that are listening to this podcast today really start doing a little bit of research to, really familiarize themselves about certification and accreditations, because I think if they did really understand why we should have this in the industry today, they wouldn't go for that low bidder. They would be willing to spend a little bit more money up front to get a job that's going to last a lot longer than a job that, they cut the corners at the beginning. We all know that, the value of money, it keeps going up. It costs more and more to do a project. Next year, it's going to cost more. The year after that, it's going to cost more to do a project. So just, going cheap at the beginning is not the way to go because it just keeps costing more. So I really, really do hope that, the ones that are listening to this podcast really understand the importance of a QP contractor, of the AMP that's out there setting these standards, the importance work that they're doing, not only here in the U.S., but worldwide, to help everyone. I just hope that, people really understand and take the time to listen to what we're saying and take the time to do a little bit of research on their own.
Absolutely. Gentlemen, this has been a great conversation. So many great pointers today. For anyone listening that might want to learn more about the IUPAT, where can they do that? I'm assuming it's the website and social media, but feel free to plug whatever you would like to plug from the IUPAT's end to let listeners get more involved.
Yeah, so IUPAT.org. Also, you can check us out on Facebook, Instagram. But anybody that's interested in joining the IUPAT as a contractor or as a worker, we definitely encourage you to check out our website. Thank you, Ben.
Great answer, Andrew. And I would also say if anybody's going to the AMP conference, and I think it starts March 15th in Houston, Texas. If anybody's going to the AMP conference, we will have a booth there. We will have members throughout the U.S. and Canada that's going to be participating in that conference. My name is Ken Seal. We got Andrew Kroll. We got Don McLean on the call here. We will be at that conference. Look us up and let's have a conversation about what we talked about today.
I would just like to add that, we're really easy to find. We're at all the conventions. We're at all the shows. Our contractors are doing a lot of the work, and our members are all over the place. You can find us on different social medias, different blaster and painter pages. In the comments, you can get a hold of us, as well as our local reps across the country. There's so many of us, and yeah, we will be at the AMP conference every year. We have a giant booth, and we encourage people to reach out to us. Thank you as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining, and I look forward to seeing you guys in Houston in a couple of months, as Ken mentioned, starting March 15th. All right, that will do it for today's show. Great insight from Don McLean, Andrew Kroll, and Ken Seal with the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, or IUPAT for short. They mentioned where our listeners can learn more from them. And as for us at Coatings for an AMP, the best places to get more information from us are at our websites or social media outlets. The websites you can find at coatingsformag.com or at amp.org. And you should just search for Coatings for AMP at your social media outlet of choice or your podcast home of choice for that matter. And you can find Lots of great content on so many subjects pertaining to the coatings industry and the broader mission of materials protection and performance. All right, with all the plugs complete, we can adjourn for today. On behalf of Don, Andrew, and Ken with the IUPAT, I'm Ben Dubose, news editor with the AMP Publications team. Thanks as always for listening, and please come back soon for more new podcasts from Coatings Pro and AMP. Happy holidays.